Hello everyone and everything, and welcome back to more Hollow Knight. As of last episode, we officially attained every achievement and ending we could possibly get on this file. Only a small smattering of highly optional, highly difficult things remain, and so today, we seek them out. We're going to start down here in the Hall of Gods, because only 4 marks remain. All 4 bosses which only appear in the Pantheon of Hallownest, none of the other 4. So we're going to get started right away on them. First on the docket is going to be Winged Nosk, basically just because he's way easier than the other ones that are on for today. Skipping past the attuned fight because there's absolutely nothing different. Let's get into Ascended. Now, obviously, since every boss fight in the Pantheon of the Hallownest has any Ascended differences that they would have had down here in the Hall of Gods, we're not going to be seeing any differences from Attuned to Ascended. With the exception, of course, being HP. So Ascended Nosk here has 1050 HP, up from 750. And we get into one of the main issues with this fight, is that even though it is very simple, it does require a fair bit of patience, just because we have very few opportunities to actually land hits on him. Something. That's what happens when you wear the Mask of Hornet. Does it actually change who you are? Hornet's one of the only characters in this game with a proper gender, who knows? But with the increased HP, I have very little advice to give apart from don't get greedy. With the patterns being so easy to read and recognize, all you have to do is keep at it until he goes down. Against Radiant Winged Nosk, I still have very little extra to offer, but I can at least recommend that if you go in with an overcharmed build, that you do whatever you can to give yourself as much soul as possible. I've gone in with Soul Eater here, and that is going to make the whole fight go a little bit faster, which of course is going to give me fewer opportunities to make any mistakes, enabling me to defeat the Radiant version of this fight, no problem. Honestly, it just feels weird that the ultimate rematch against Nosk here ended up being way easier. Alright. No problem there. But that's just the easy part. Next up on our docket is going to be the Sisters of Battle. Once again, let's skip straight past Attuned and get into the interesting bits. When battling on Ascended, this first wave of the single Mantis Lord has 600 HP, up from 500. Not a big difference. Definitely the most that this particular phase has ever had in any iteration of this fight, but ultimately very much a non-issue. However, in Phase 2, all 3 of them now have 950. This gives them the second highest HP out of any boss fight in the game, second only to the Ascended and Radiant Watcher Knights fight, which has 3600. This can make this fight quite the endurance challenge, but as I've said before, despite how much HP they have, everything moves so fast and you have so many opportunities to deal damage, and take damage apparently, that it barely feels like it. Of course, since we only just fought them very recently, we haven't gained any new skills or abilities that will make any part of this fight easier, so it's really going to come down to just base fundamentals. How well can you dodge by doing various jumping, saving your Shade Cloak dash for when you need it most, and things like that. Now, the fact that I did take 3 undue hits during this fight does not bode well for Radiance, but we'll tackle that in just a moment. There it is. Now getting into Radiant on paper, due largely to the massive frequency of their attacks and their enormous composite pool of health, When plugging their stats into my difficulty formula, this is the hardest fight in the game. That is, of course, on paper. It doesn't account for the fact that despite how quick their attacks move off, they're all pretty rigid and geometric and fairly simple to dodge. That doesn't make this easy by any means, but definitely not a 90 difficulty fight. But as I've said before, once you're getting into the Radiant fights, the numbers are so high that the actual difficulty stat doesn't matter. I'm just calculating it for fun, more than anything. But as I said, this is my personal favorite fight in the game, and any additional attempts that it takes is going to do little more than give me more opportunities to play my favorite fight. So this is very much a win-win situation here. Of course, as with Ascended, I have very little to offer in the way of new advice for actually taking them down, but that shouldn't matter, because this is one fight where once you get it, it doesn't matter how much damage or how much health they have. Just get into the flow, into the rhythm, and you'll take them down, no problem. Third, let's move on to Nightmare King Grimm. And I love his unique dream particles. No other statue down here has anything like this. This is unique to Grimm. And of course, I do have nothing new to say about his attuned fight, since we already did it up in the Pantheon, but it is worth noting, ow, that unlike Grey Prince Zote, what am I doing here? Unlike Grey Prince Zote, this is not a fight you can bypass simply by the choices you make. Even if you took the banishment route down the Grim Troop DLC, or the Grim Troop quest, I should say, you will still have to face Nightmare King Grimm at the top of the Pantheon of Hallownest, or near the top, I should say. There's no getting out of this one. And that takes care of that. Now, technically, that fight is easier than the original fight we did in his tent. 1250 health down from 1500. But his Ascended fight does give him an upgrade in his HP. Up to 1650. Not the most of anything we've ever fought, but strong enough to contend with. Now, his statue is quite well placed down here in the Hall of Gods, being right next to the Pure Vessel, and I'd say this fight requires a very similar mindset to that. If you're willing to learn the attacks, that was my own fault. If you're willing to learn the attacks, focus in on what he is capable of doing, what every telegraph indicates, this fight's no problem. If you try to do it by reaction alone, this is going to be an extremely difficult fight. So I don't really have any better advice past what I've already given than to say practice makes perfect, and as always, if you are having trouble learning his attacks, go in without the goal of actually doing any damage to him. Just see how long you can survive, how long you can go without taking any damage, and you'll find yourself learning the attack and their patterns much faster. Oh shoot. Man, this is a long fight. Well, I did that without taking damage, so that might as well have been Radiant, but let's see if I can replicate it. Now, Radiant Nightmare King Grimm is one there is absolutely no shame in overcharming for, but since we don't actually use a lot of spells, at least in the strategies that I recommend, what are we going to bring in? I've decided to add on Long Nail on top of what I've already got, just to give myself that little bit of extra buffer when we need to nail Pogo over him and stuff like that. Alright, once more with feeling. Ow, shoot, that went past. Somewhat similarly to the Sisters of Battle, this is another fight where you really just need to get a feel for the rhythm of it. The frequency of his attacks. How much safe time and breathing room you have between each one. Once you get that down, it's all just a matter of knowing the telegraphs, as I said. And if you know his telegraphs, then you've basically already won. From there, all you really need to do is avoid succumbing to the pressure, realizing that you're getting close to the end, and finishing strong instead of letting your heartbeat get the best of you. He keeps getting me with the bats. Once again, you can use his Pufferfish Firestorm attack to gauge how far you are along in the fight as a sort of Whoa, that was close. As a sort of impromptu HP bar. He will use it when he gets down to 75%, 50%, and 25% of his HP. So feel free to use it to gauge how well you're doing, though if you just sort of let yourself zone out and not focus on that, you'll probably end up doing better thanks to, once again, avoiding succumbing to the pressure of realizing you're doing well. It all depends on your mindset, and mine is to die. There we go. That wasn't terrible, but it was no pushover, that's for sure. But we got him. Which, of course, brings us down this glowing hallway at the end. I should not be overcharmed for this. What am I doing? Okay. Absolute Radiance. Now, I actually don't know if I've ever mentioned before that you don't have to beat any of these bosses which are exclusive to the Pantheons in order for them to appear down here in the Hall of Gods. As long as you reach them in their respective Pantheons, you unlock the ability to practice against them, and that is incredibly valuable against Radiance here. It's in fact intended. Pretty much no matter how good at any game you are never going to beat Absolute Radiance on your first try once you reach the top of the Pantheon of Hallownest. That's by design. And that is, in my opinion, that is probably the biggest reason why they didn't make it so that, despite it being as real as the fight against her in the dreams of the Pure Vessel, your Steel Soul Run and Fragile Charms are not at risk. Is because they just made it too difficult for that to be a reasonable ask. This is fine. I don't need health. And it is very nice to be able to go up against this fight in a much lower pressure environment, where the weight of the entire world is not screaming down at your shoulders. And you have all the time you need to come to grips with how to dodge these attacks. I'm glad I healed up a little bit, because... Oh, stop teleporting so fast. There we go. Now, after felling her, the sequence at the end doesn't play out in full, because this is not her true form, of course. And you get this.
Woe, thou say, to achieve victory even only against the mere imprint of that most brilliant day, thine balance proves strength enough to impress. But couldst thou ever hope to overcome that mighty god tuned at the core of dream and mind, when left in perfect state, at peak of all others? We think not.
You're a little behind the times there, Godseeker. I've done that 3 times. But I'm going to break the sequence up a little bit and save those more difficult rematches against her for a little bit later. Because now that we've beaten every single boss on Attuned, this gate down in the bottom right opens up to us, where we find the fight against ourselves. Now, that would be really cool, honestly, but unfortunately, it's just a lore tablet. Not bug, nor beast, nor god. And we get an entry in our Hunter's Journal for that, with a little bit of extra lore from Lem, of all people. Rare artifact from a time before Hallownest. Contains a drop of liquid from the abyss. Inspired or mad, those ancient bugs, they devoted their worship to no lord or power or strength, but to the very darkness itself. Allows us to learn just a touch more about Void and the people who worshipped it, who were here before Hallownest. And while we're on a little bit of a final sweep cleanup duty, I do want to draw attention to Zote here. As I said, he's the one I end up having to practice most, just because he's so weird of a fight that no matter how good I get at all the others, no matter how well I've memorized every single one of them, he's the one I can never seem to keep in my mind. So don't be afraid to come down here and practice if you ever need to. But more importantly than that, I've learned something about him that I did not know already. Back when we were first doing his bio, I said that the wiki, the Hollow Knight wiki, erroneously states that his volatile Zotlings do 2 damage, which I was right about that not being the case in his original fight in when you fight him in Bretta's basement. However, here, these explosions do double damage. An interesting small change that unfortunately means that some of the text on screen in the past has been slightly erroneous. I hope you can forgive me for that. But while we're on the subject of Zote, there is something here in the Hall of Gods that we have not found yet. Despite opening up these locked entrances down at the far end, there's one more thing that we can find. And it takes a very precise movement sequence. I'll show it again. Crystal dash off this wall, cancel it, and double jump up to this arch here. Then do some upward slashes, and you'll find a secret chamber up here in the ceiling, where something, perhaps the most powerful something of all, yearns to break free. Zote and all of his 57 precepts line the walls here. An intruder in the Hall of Gods. Zote the Mighty now does damage. It's terrifying. It's too powerful. He cannot be stopped now that he actually does damage to us with his attacks. And we beat him. Welcome to the Eternal Ordeal. It's not really obvious what this is as far as lore implications go. This is basically just Zote in all of his bravado, all of his braggadocio, bragging his way, forcing his way into the mind of Godhome to be considered as powerful as a god, because that's just how strong he considers himself to be. It is bizarre, it is hilarious. There is a counter at the bottom, all sorts of new kinds of Zotlings we have never seen, like these big heavy Zotlings here. These hanging Zotlings, which will fire at us like an aspid. And many of them have a lot of health, especially these heavy ones. We're going to need a lot of all of our skills to get through this. It's not a proper boss. It doesn't count towards getting the Void Idol down in the bottom right corner. This is not necessary for pretty much anything. There's a tall Zote over there in the corner, a really weird hitbox, oddly proportioned. They're odd knockback when you hit them, that they bounce off walls and each other. Makes them more difficult in their own rights in some ways. There's a big, giant Zote mask, which acts like a thwomp from Mario. I don't know if that was meant to be the case. There's some volatile Zotlings. They defeat themselves, same as they did in the fight against GPZ. I don't think I've ever called him that on screen before, actually. GPZ is what many people call Grey Prince Zote, just for the sake of brevity. For the same reasons, we often get, you may often hear people call Nightmare King Grim NKG. And we've lost here. 39, not too bad. You may wonder if there is a goal here, and there is indeed. For the sake of this goal, I actually don't think I need Mark of Pride. It's helpful, undoubtedly. But I think I would prefer to have Soul Eater here instead. And for our last notch, Nailmaster's Glory seems alright. In the past, I have accomplished this primarily by using Deep Focus and Quick Focus and Shape of Oon. I don't know if that's what I'll end up resorting to here. We'll see. So what is our goal here? Not to get hit by Zote twice, that's for sure. Our goal is hinted at by his chamber out there in the Hall of Gods, by the fact that he's surrounded by his 57 precepts, or at least what's implied to be. You can't actually read all 57 of them there. But our goal here is to beat him 57 times, or to beat 57 Zotlings, I should say, not to participate in this challenge 57 times. That would be even worse, I think. In the early waves, don't feel the need to rush. There's a limited amount of Zotlings that can even be on screen at a given time. So while it's low down here in the early waves, just be frugal with your soul and use it to heal whenever you need. Keep yourself topped off in preparations for the later, much tougher rounds. I plan on using Descending Dark a lot to avoid damage, especially from anything that hits with a shockwave. These are one of the only enemies in the game which is not present in any form in the Hunter's Journal, despite the 3 Zotling forms that can be found. Oh, careful, careful. Quick Slash is immensely helpful against this many foes, I will say as well. When facing this many foes fighting you with this many different tactics, nothing is more important than invincibility frames. Use your Shade Cloaks and your Descending Darks wisely in order to get through all of this garbage on screen at any cost. The simple weak Zotlings, or which aren't actually Zotlings, I don't think, we'll just call them Zots, are the easiest to deal with because you don't actually have to kill them in order to knock them down long enough that you can get some healing off. Same goes for the tall Zotlings. All you need to do is hit them once, send them flying, and then heal up at your own leisure. What is cool, compared to the volatile Zotlings as we knew them in the fight against Great Prince Zot, is that their explosions actually do damage to anything within their range, so knocking enemies towards them is important. What is that? I don't think I even have a name for that. Alright, we've got a Salubrazot, who basically does the opposite as Salubra's Blessing, sapping our soul from us whenever it's on screen, and flying away from us instead of hovering just over our heads. That is going to be the highest priority at any given point, especially if you're using a spell-centric build like mine here. So you do not want to let those guys drain too much of you. Come on. I hear you, Salubrazot. I thought you were still there. We're actually really close here. There he is. She is. Salubrazot. Actually, I don't know what gender Salubra is. I've been careful to call him they. Whoa! Oh, we're so close! We're so close! 50... No! Aww. That's alright. It's a really cool detail that Zot's roar is one of the only ones in the game that does not freeze you in place. Like, there is just no intimidation factor there. The knight does not have to worry a lick. The same holds true of his original fight, I believe. In the same principle as you can use this phase, first phase to heal, you might also consider using it to basically build up a soul reservoir, giving yourself a lot of spells to throw around come the later phases. I'm not too worried about it since I've gone with a Soul Eater build, and building up a lot of soul with that equipped is never an issue. Gotta love this version of Zot's theme, sang by Zot himself. It's beautiful. Truly, his is a voice for the ages. Rivals the great singers of our time. You can also abuse the fact that the projectiles fired by the Hanging Zots have a slight gravity arc to them, which means that when they fire directly at you, if you're far away enough, they won't actually hit you. They'll fall into the ground, which I'm doing my best to try and abuse, but am failing at, because all the other ones... I didn't even realize you were there in the corner. Oh, okay, you know, I'm starting this one over. All of his Dreamnail dialogue is identical to what it was in the arena, which does mean that despite the odd nature of it, this is Zot's fight as represented in the Hall of Gods, just the same way as it is for all the rest of them. These aren't just apparitions. It does beg the question of why some of these are bugs and Salubra ghosts and giant masks. But the mind of Zote is unknowable. It cannot be comprehended by mere mortals such as me. Don't lose your cool against any of the shockwave, the big heavy Zotes. Their shockwaves are unique in that they actually don't travel across the screen, so it can be weird to get used to that fact. But, like I said, just don't lose your cool. Stay aware of the fact that you do have a bit of a grace period, and if you do manage to learn the distance, you can definitely take advantage of that by knowing when you're safe and when you're not. Yeah! Okay. Man, this big, heavy one needs to go away immediately. I noticed that the fall of the giant Zote masks can also damage enemies as well, which is pretty nice. Pretty nice of them. Oh, I'm doing so bad. Oh, gosh. You know what, I brought in the Nailmaster's Glory, but I'm not using any nail art, so let's actually switch over to Grub Song, just so I have a little extra soul to sling about. Ah, you weren't supposed to hit me from that far away. Stop it! This is why quick focus is really nice. Corner is my friend. Okay, back to full. There we go. Ooh, I did it. And it is, of course, eternal. Its namesake is no overstatement. You can keep going for as long as you wish. As much as you've got in you. And I don't see any reason to stop, so let's just see what sort of high score I can get. My highest I've already passed. I've never gotten more than, I think, 65 before. So this is already going pretty well. I've got the rhythm of it, the hierarchy of. You need to take out any of the ones that have projectiles as fast as you can. The Salubra ones remain your highest priority. After that, I'd say it's probably the heavies, just because they have the ability to target you from anywhere on screen, and the extra nuisance that is their shockwaves causes a lot of problems. The charging ones, either both the tall and the short, are their own threat, but they're nice to have around because it's really easy just to knock them away once while you deal with whatever else you need to. Right now there's just too many of them on the ground for me to ultimately avoid, but 87, I'm pretty proud of that. Our reward for that is a solid gold statue of Zote. What more could you want? But also, if you quit to menu, you will see our ultimate reward. Probably the best thing we've ever gotten out of anything in this game. The Zote theme menu. He sings his own little iteration of the song. It's cute. Gonna be putting off the Ascended and Absolute Radiance fights just a touch longer, as we climb back up to the Pantheon of the Hallownest, and we are going to need to go after the other two bindings that we have yet to get. The next one I'm going to be going after is the Nail Binding. In my opinion, the second most difficult, just for one reason, and for that one reason we are going to be going in a little differently. And by differently, I mean pretty much the same as we did in the Mask Bindings challenge, packing the Fury of the Fallen set, as we did before. To reiterate, binding our nail locks our base nail damage at 13. For just about every fight, this doesn't do much but make it take longer. But if we bring in both Fury of the Fallen and Fragile Strength, having Fragile Strength boosts our damage up to about 19, and having both Fragile Strength and Vengeful Spirit boosts it up to about 35, which, as you may remember, Our damage when combining both the normal Unbound Nail with Fragile Strength is 31. So essentially this will allow us to do all that we are used to doing and more so, and then some, and ultimately, in at least some way, circumvent the biggest trial that is this binding. I'm not going to be going all in on Vengeful Spirit the same way I did during the Mask Binding challenge. There's just one particular boss in here that I want it for. This is a sacrifice going in with the Vengeful Spirit build as I have chosen to, because essentially, the best way to actually counteract the damage deficit from your nail in most cases is to fall back on spells. Since I'm not doing that, or since I don't even have Soul Catcher equipped, I don't have quite as much luxury with that, and so even some of the easy fights are going to take long enough that I end up taking lots of damage. The best thing about this, compared to either of the two bindings we've already done, both Soul and Mask, is that we have plenty of ability and opportunity to heal. So I'm not overly worried about that for now. Okay, Paintmaster Shio, this is the important part. This is the boss we are going to let take us down to 1 HP. We are going to have to be really careful afterwards, but Shio is not one of the more difficult bosses. If you're nervous about him, then you can let the Mantis Lords take you down to 1 HP and use the life seeds you get after that wisely. Either way, the goal is to get to this point with some extra lifeblood while being at 1 HP and having the Fury of the Fallen bonus activated. The next two bosses are pretty simple, but don't get cocky. We're not going to need too much extra lifeblood going forward. That's not really the reason that we've done everything we have. But Elderhu is a great example. It's really easy to do this fight hitless. Really easy to get lazy and let yourself take some undue damage. So this is a good setup. We're at the point we're doing 35 damage, and we come to the Collector, the reason we've done all of this. When doing only 13 damage, the Collector is an extremely difficult boss because he has the 26 health summons. Coming in here with Fury of the Fallen activated allows us to go at him with the same strategy that we have used the whole time, just making sure we're killing everything as soon as it spawns, which we wouldn't be able to do even if we had just Fragile Strength. At that point, we would be doing something like 21 damage. Not quite enough, but that fight is just as easy as it has ever been. Now, at this point, I no longer need the Fury of the Fallen bonus, so we are going to work our way back up to full health, because genuinely, the Collector is the hardest part of a nail binding challenge of this Pantheon. I even consider Absolute Radiance and every other super difficult boss we have ever fought to be a part of that statement. The Collector is the most difficult one, if you have to hit the enemies multiple times. It is far too easy for them to overwhelm you. I'm also not going to be too worried about our extra lifeblood masks, because no matter what happens after this, we'll be sitting on a bench and losing them anyway. Alright, now that that's over with, let's go ahead and switch back to our normal build with Soul Catcher and resume as normal. Oh, I got him! Oh, that was really cool. I did end up getting hit, but that was still cool. This is why passing to yourself in volleyball is illegal. You could just do this the whole game long. Now more than ever, it's important that you save your soul for the second phase and unload on him here and now. Use your weak nail to get him to the hard part, use your strong soul to get past that. This is going to be a strange recommendation, but one thing that might genuinely help once you get to this point is mute the game and listen to your own music. As I said, a lot of the biggest obstacle of this fight is the pressure, and the music really does aid in that. This is the sound a climactic battle makes. And if you just decide to tune that out and switch on to something chiller, something more relaxing, something that maybe you would do homework to or work to, you may find this fight way easier. That's a pretty big may, but it's definitely worth a shot. Ooh, yikes. Ooh, yikes. Ooh, yikes. Oh, goodness. Wow. Ah! Go! Oh, that was so close. I'm being so risky right now, I have no reason to be. Oh, she's up! Oh, excellent, excellent, excellent. Okay. I did it. Activate seizure. Oh no. Getting the Mr. Mushroom thing makes the credits take longer. Alright, that's 3 out of 4. Now for the hard one. Going in Charmless locks your damage at 21. Makes it so that you cannot use the upgraded spells, can't have a longer nail, can't have quick slash, can't have faster focus. Anything. You are stuck with the base kit. And this is, in my opinion, the toughest binding you can have. It doesn't drastically change any of the fights we've already done, but there is definitely something to keep in mind for later. As you might expect, this is the sort of challenge that serves as the ultimate punishment for if you've gotten too used to any specific charms, particularly ones which alter the way the game feels. Things like Quick Slash, Sharp Shadow, Quick Focus. If you are too used to things like that, this is really going to hurt. As I've said before, my biggest failing is being incredibly reliant on Longnail. I wouldn't say reliant, but very comfortable with, I would say. And going in against certain bosses with just that slight bit of less range does make my performance against them weaker. I recommend having a list of these sequence handy, because a lot of times you'll be going in against certain bosses for which you might want a lot of spell after certain ones, like Gorb into Dung Defender. Dung Defender is a fight made much easier if you go into it with a bit of soul already stockpiled. So don't get super greedy using a lot of spells on Gorb, things like that. If any of your strategies require you to have full soul, be stingy with it on whatever fight precedes them. That way you can be topped off and ready to go when you actually head into the fight proper. For me, Blobbles are another important part in knowing the sequence. Blobbles are a fight that I very much struggle with, at least struggle with getting through damageless. So I need to take into account what comes next, and what comes next is a fight that I am extremely confident on, the Sisters of Battle. So knowing that, I can allow myself to take this fight a little bit more recklessly, not worrying so much about how much damage I take as long as I get through the fight with at least enough that I know I can take on the Sisters of Battle pretty confidently. Even if you're not super confident against the Sisters of Battle fight as a whole, you can just wait on this first fight for this first sister to do the attacks that it's easy to heal against. Knowing which fights are abusable in that sense as well is an extremely important tool in making your way to the top of this Pantheon. Alright, once again, after Shio is a very important time. Here you're going to want to make extra sure you don't squander any of your lifeblood masks. Like that. Alright, I took 2 hits on Hive Knight, which I would have preferred not to, but we're playing the hand we're dealt. Elder Hu is a great example of a boss not to use soul against, even though it would be very easy. Elder Hu is an exceptionally simple boss, made only difficult by the restraint it takes not to just unload at him and get sloppy. We want to go in to the next fight with as much soul as we can possibly have, because his immediate follow-up is the Collector, and at 21 damage, his enemies with 26 health will all require 2 hits no matter what we do. This, if you recall quite a ways away, quite a while ago, is what specifically I recommended practicing against his Ascended form, Charmless, was in aid of. This fight is its own beast entirely when you go into it without charms. Everything is different. The entire skill set is switched. You want to make sure that you're gaining enough soul that you can use it on the bugs and not squandering it so much on what you might not need it on. Avoiding the series of 3 bugs that come from the ceiling can be extremely difficult, in conjunction with the Collector being just a jumpy and twitchy little dude. So practice in the Ascended form. Learn when it's possible just barely to heal. Learn what you can do and when, because otherwise that is the biggest wall to completing this particular challenge. And we're over it, but that means that the pressure is on. I'm fairly confident in my performance against almost every boss to come, but hubris, thy name is me. All it would take is a couple of good slip-ups. I have had times where I've gotten past that and immediately died to God Tamer because I was just that confident in how my fight against that was supposed to go. Yeah. Get him! Heck yeah! Oh no! Shoot. Every time I almost finish this fight stylishly, it just doesn't let me have it. Anyway. Now that we've beaten White Defender, this is the last main hurdle on our path to the top. At least for me. Markoth is one fight that I struggle with quite a bit, and he is the second fight in this particular stretch between Hot Springs. Our first is Soul Tyrant, so we are going to fight Soul Tyrant as though we are fighting on Radiant. Carefully, slowly, tactically, because I want every one of these Lifeblood masks that I have. Very rarely do I actually make it through this fight without taking at least 1 hit, but if I can get through without taking 2 hits, I'm going to call that a win. Of course, ultimately that's going to be up to Markoth. And much like Elder Who into the Collector, we want to have as much soul going into the fight with Markoth as we can get. So I'm going to be a little bit more frugal with my soul than I otherwise would as well. Okay, I got hit 3 times, which is definitely not a win, but we will see. Markoth, the amount of times this particular spooky ghost has spelled the end of my otherwise highly successful runs is too many for me to count. Shoot. Just like we did in the Bound Nail, we are going to try and get through the first phase nail only, or by using as few spells as we can get away with, because I want to save them for his much more difficult second phase. And because we're not packing much more powerful spells, this isn't going to be enough. Oh, maybe it is. Alright, okay. Whew. That was good. Okay, because even just scraping by that fight is dangerous when the next fight is Great Prince Zod. It's also worth noting on this fight that if you're going in with all bindings, not a challenge I personally want to undertake today, but if you're doing it, be aware that the Zotlings are going to take 2 nail slashes each when you're only dealing 13 damage. Shouldn't be an issue under any other circumstance. And of course you don't just want to scrape by Great Prince Zod either, because the next fight is Failed Champion. And while if you can get him staggered, you can do whatever you want, getting him past that first phase can be difficult if you're not practiced up on his patterns. Luckily, looks like we got there. And that is the last concern I have. Don't forget that after staggering the Failed Champion for the 3rd time, he will never get back up. He's just gonna lay there until you beat him, which gives you the perfect opportunity to heal to full, get maximum soul, and be ready for Nightmare King Grim as fresh as a daisy. Alright. Let's squander the heck out of those masks. There's one. Yep, alright. Oh, yeah, there they go. I knew it was gonna happen. Okay. Ow. I've already taken... Ow, shoot. Oh, goodness. In many ways, the first couple phases are harder than the phase up in the sky. Way up high, you have more room to maneuver, more room to dodge. While it may be harder to hit the Radiance, it can definitely be easier to avoid her onslaught, and even to heal. Alright, I'm fine here. Oh gosh, what the heck did I just how? Oh goodness. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Okay. Just going up, but I don't have... Oh no, I can only take one hit here. This is ugly. Oh gosh! No! 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 Oh, Radiance, you cruel, cruel mistress, you. Well, back into the fray. Okay, we're back. It's only been an hour. Okay, heal again a little bit. This is the best thing about this second phase, or this upper phase, is that you do have time to do that. Oh, what? My toe! Ow. How? How did I thread that needle? That was... that was stupid. I shouldn't be alive. I'm about to pay for that. Oh no! Oh gosh, oh gosh, oh gosh, oh gosh, oh gosh, oh... No, not again, please. I've been at this for a while. Alright. Here we go. I can only take one hit again. Which again is not nice. I practiced this fight off screen. I thought I could handle it. Ugh, heart pain. Stop. Stop my heart beating. I will fall down first, because I can at least take that kind of hit. No, 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 no. Okay. Oh, thank goodness. Oh. Alright, once more with feeling. Whew, okay, I did it! And this is the first time I have ever accomplished this. Getting each binding on the final Pantheon. So our reward for that has nothing to do with the Lifeblood chamber down below, but instead, slide on down this left wall, and this little crevice here now has a new door for us. Welcome to the Land of Storms. We are not in Hallownest anymore. This is truly a desolate, one might even say godless place. Some discarded masks. No Dreamnail dialogue for us, though. You can see the statues of two absolutely ginormous bugs in the background there, occasionally illuminated by lightning, but if we dig through the files of this game, we can see their sprites, and they are imposing fellas. But that's all we get. We can never visit the Land of Storms again. But we did get an entry to our Hunter's Journal. The Weathered Mask. Strange mask from a godless land, passed down over time. The design suggests the wearer's thoughts were focused through the crest. Gods of thunder, gods of rain, why forsake thy servants? Will our minds be left suffering, to ache alone? What god remains to deliver us from this woeful silence? The Lament of the God-Seekers gives us one of the only tangible bits of lore and history. about the God Seekers. They came from a land whose gods forsook them, who left their mind crying out in silence, looking for new gods. Still not entirely clear how they came here, but there is one way we can learn a tiny bit more, and unfortunately it's a little bit repetitive. Technically, we unlocked the ability to do what I'm trying to do now after beating our third Pantheon. After beating all 3 of the first Pantheons, there becomes a 2% chance that when you dream nail the God Seeker, something special can happen. Hurry up! There we go. Alright, well, that 2% chance we will wander in to an old memory of the God Seeker, and we see one right back here. Gods of our future, seek thee, we shall, to devote our all. These winds carry us to thee, dear gods. Obviously we don't have a map here, so it's hard to tell where we are, but it does bear a resemblance to the outskirts of the Howling Cliffs. Perhaps this isn't too far from the border of Hallownest. For after their gods forsook them, they sought new gods, using a temporary tuning device built out of a carapace. The tuning device being the same thing that we use to attune to the many gods.
Savage, intruder! No right now has to trespass within such sacred memory. Be gone! Be gone!
And we can never enter that memory again. But that is about it as far as lore goes for Godhome. So as one final note before we sink ourselves into the final challenge that we will take on today, this is the Pantheon I was thinking of way back when I took on the Pantheon of the Master without taking damage. This is the one that will have a slight change if you get all the way through it damageless. And here's a picture of what that looks like, because Radiance knows I'm not doing that myself, let alone all bindings. But once again, if you do get all bindings, the mark you get for that, the all glowing, overrides the hit list, despite hit list definitely being harder. It would be like doing every single Radiant boss back to back to back. That is absolutely ridiculous. But speaking of Radiance, let's wrap up with what I personally consider to be the most difficult thing that I am going to show. First, of course, we'll start with Ascended. Small mercies with Radiance here. Nothing changes except damage values. She doesn't gain extra HP. Her battlefield doesn't change in the slightest. She just does increased damage. Oh, I really thought I still had some time. And just for fun, I'm gonna go after this with the Fury of the Fallen equipped. For basically no reason. But hey, we might as well. It's our last hurrah. If she hits us twice, we are going to get a huge boost in damage and be able to take her down just that much faster. There it is. Oop, never mind. Can I skip phase 3? That'd be funny. Yeah, I can. Let's get to it. Yikes. Alright. Oh, shoot. I shouldn't have done that. Oh, I jumped right into that. And that's that. Okay. Took a few more tries than I was hoping it would, but you knew it wouldn't stop there. Let's not be too hasty. We have unlocked another reward down here in the bottom chamber. The form we took when we fought Radiance inside the vessel's mind. Void given form. This is what is sealed inside every vessel. The Void tendrils unleashed. Our Hunter's Notes updated. Our Void Idol as well. Volatile liquid of the abyss writhes within. Not a new quote from Lem there, but definitely fancy. Shout out to everyone out there whose list looks like this, by the way. Alright, let's prepare. We're not going to hold any punches against this. And I want as many spells as I can possibly have. So I'm going to replace Mark of Pride with Long Nail here, just so I can squeeze Spell Twister in with Soul Eater. Maybe a bit overkill, but I want to Desolate Dive my little heart out as we go in against Radiant Absolute Radiance. I don't think I can put it any better than to say that Radiant Absolute Radiance requires absolute patience. We will need to choose our every strike wisely. And I personally love just spamming as many Desolate Dives as I can possibly do to avoid having to even think about many of the otherwise very dangerous attacks that she would otherwise throw our way. She is being pretty heavy with the walls of light here. I think in this first phase, at least, one of the best things you can possibly know to do is to Desolate Dive or Descending Dark onto the spikes and use your invincibility frames to get rid of them. It gives you so much more room to maneuver. And once again, to me at least, this is the hard part. She is easy enough to avoid here, but when it comes time to actually hit her, she makes life difficult. Okay, that was really close. You've got to be close already. Oh gosh, oh, ooh. That was clutch. And she's up. Oh man. Ah, alright. That was bound to happen. Really, really strong showing for my first attempt against that, though. I think we can do this. Oh, this is going really well already. Oop, nope, hang on. Wow, that was the fastest second, or fourth phase, or however many phases she has. That was lightning quick. Oop, careful. Follow my own advice. Here we go. Here we go. Okay, here we go. This could be it here. This has not taken a lot of tries to get to this point. And I choked. Alright, that's fine. That was embarrassing. I just fell right down. It's interesting, as you really get into the swing of things, none of her phases end up being that long. What ends up feeling like the longest part of the battle is just waiting for her to do her, like, battle start animation where the sun turns out to be her. This is where I want you. Never mind. Okay. No, we're fine. We're fine. Easy now, easy. Okay. Easy, easy, easy breaths. Easy. Easy now. Okay, we got this. And of course, if you do not abuse the fact that these things disappear when they go off the top of the screen, what are you even doing? We have done it! Ha 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 ha! I don't want to hear it, Godseeker. That is way harder than beating the Pantheon. Ah, our final reward. The most imposing statue yet, the form we took at the top of the Pantheon. Void given focus. Rare artifact from a time before Hallownest. Its spires twined in a unified form contains a large amount of liquid from the abyss. Perfectly still. Through attunement, the void once contained, writhing and violent in the vessel, now lies completely still at our touch. Thanks to the Godseeker, we are at our most powerful. But it doesn't feel right to say goodbye on that note. It doesn't feel right to say farewell without properly ending the game one more time. No, this will not be my last Hollow Knight video. We still have a couple of achievements which elude us, namely the speedrun achievements for beating the game in under 5 hours, but the video I plan on making for that is going to be more of a guide. Which makes this the last proper episode of this project, and it has been an incredible experience. I wanted to cover everything of this game that I knew of, to hit every point, to beat every boss, and to share every skill that I know. And I can proudly say, I think I did it. So, what remains? Well, we have an achievement guide. I plan on uploading all of my boss bios separately. So should you ever wish to know how to beat any specific one, you'll have access to that. And a couple more videos down the line as well. But beyond that, Hollow Knight and Hallownest lies behind us. And all that remains now is for us to await the challenge Team Cherry has promised to meet us with in the future. And of course, to thank you. Thank you so much for watching. And I will see you wherever our paths next cross.